we will use this approach to explain parts of to derive a theory of multinational company. So let's go to cause. So what is, as I was saying, what was the main problem that cause was facing at his time when he wrote this important paper called, again, The Nature of the Firm. The problem was that actually you can have two different ways of organizing economic activities. Okay, one way is to coordinate activity via the price, and this is what we are used to teach in our micro classes, where the idea is that I always tell this to my students, the fascinating approach of the market of how markets work is that you do not need lots of information to coordinate the activity of the buyers and the sellers. You just need to know the information about prices. Okay, when you buy a shoes, you basically decide whether to buy it or not, depending on, of course, the characteristics of the shoes, the characteristics of the brand of the shoes, and so on and so forth, which are all condensed, if you want, in the price. The price is the first thing that you observe when you want to buy something. Okay, and the same is true with respect to buyers. Okay, with respect to sellers. Okay, when they want to sell a product, basically the most relevant variable they take into consideration when they have to enter a market is the price that they have to fix. In particular, if you assume that there are perfectly competitive markets, prices of inputs and prices of products are given, so you just need to maximize your profit function or your utility function, and all activities are somewhat coordinated. Those who want to buy a product find some firms that are willing to sell the products, and firms that want to sell the products find consumers that are willing to buy the products. Okay, so this is the magic of the market. The way how the magic takes place is that activities are coordinated via the price mechanism. Okay. However, what Coase was saying is that there is also another way of coordinating economic activities, which is managerial command. Meaning, you do not rely on the price to tell you what to do, but you rely on some sort of authority relations in which you have a person that tells you what to do. Okay, and this is what happens inside firms, in which you have managers and supervisors that tell people the work that they have to do, the task that they have to do, for how long, and under what conditions. Okay, so the basic difference is between the coordination via prices or coordination via managerial command. And this quote by Coase is interesting because it says that outside the firm, so outside the boundary of the firm, price movements direct production, which is coordinated through a series of exchange transactions on the market. So if you are able to set the boundary of the firm, everything that is outside this boundary is coordinated via the market. For instance, assume my company is producing shoes, and I want to buy an input, which is leather, that I need to produce these shoes. Okay. Now, if this supply of leather is actually a subsidiary of my company, because I own also this other firm that is producing leather, I will use managerial command to tell this subsidiary the type of leather that I want, the cost that this leather is supposed to have, and the characteristics that under what conditions and through which supply networks this leather is to be brought to my company where I'm producing shoes. Okay. In this case, given that this subsidiary is owned by me, is part of my company, managerial command is driving the transaction. Okay, is coordinating the activity of the supplier and the buyer. If instead, rather than taking this leather from my subsidiary, I buy it from a supplier via the markets, I will not be able to tell this supplier what I want. So I want this leather, you have to produce this in this way, and you have to supply this in this other way. I will just search for the supplier that is selling the leather that is most likely similar to the one I want, and I will just sign a contract with this guy in which I will buy this amount of leather at this price. If he signs the contract and he agrees, I will just buy the leather via the market, and in this case the coordination of activities will be based on the price system, okay, because it's the price that will actually drive my choice of buying and his choices of selling me the leather. Okay, is this difference clear? It's important that you understand this step, because if this example is clear, then I think all the remaining part is pretty much easy. Okay. For Cristobal is correct, it's clear, and I hope also for the other people. If nobody answers, so if there are doubts, just let me know, because I will explain it again. If it is clear, I can go on. Okay, it seems clear. So if this is clear, then the question that Cole's had in his mind is basically what is it that determines whether a transaction is taking place via is coordinated via price mechanism, and under what condition a transaction is coordinated via a managerial command. To solve this issue, basically, Coase develops a theory that compares two different costs. On one hand, the costs of using the market, and this is probably what Allen Jr. was saying, but when he was saying transaction cost incurred when buying and selling a product. Okay, so on one hand, you have the costs of using the market, which are not zero, as assumed by neoclassical theory, but are positive, and you have to balance and to compare these costs against the costs of organizing the allocation of resources internally, meaning via managerial command. Okay, these two costs can be different. Whenever the costs of organizing internally are lower, you will rely on authority and managerial command. Whenever the costs of using the price mechanism are lower, you will use the price mechanism to coordinate and to make your transaction. Okay. Okay, so as this says, a firm will tend to expand, so to extend its boundaries until the costs of organizing an extra transaction within the firm become equal to the costs of carrying out the same transaction using the market.